So, okay, what we're looking at now is how to validate and protect an Excel worksheet. This is used when you have some sort of a form you've created and you want to use Excel for yourself or for others to put information into. Basically, you're collecting input from other people. So Excel lets you create a worksheet that others can enter their information into, and it prevents people from putting in bad data, at least as best as it can. It's not perfect, but it helps ensure that people enter valid data. So in this problem, we're going to collect several pieces of information from users, and in as much as we can, we're going to validate it. And we're going to also prevent the user from altering any cells on the workbook that they shouldn't. So what we've got here is a workbook that has a invoice for Pete's computer repair. And this page here supplements the PDF and shows you, this worksheet shows what it's like. So we've got some input fields where we're going to collect information like the date and the name of the customer. This is an invoice for this computer shop. What item was repaired, and then notice that there are some fields in here, like here's the labor rate. That's just hard-coded in that cell, and we really don't want somebody entering an invoice to change that. Down here, there's a few cells that have formulas in them. That this one just multiplies the labor rate times the number of hours. And we don't want users messing up these formulas here, like the grand total. And then down here at the bottom, we ask what kind, how the payment was made. And we want the user to be able to select from a list of cash, credit, or PayPal. So that's how we're going to set up this workbook. And so let's walk through validating a couple of these fields. So what we're going to do is check the value that users type in every field. So those are the fields that are shaded in the worksheet, these guys here. We're going to validate every one of these fields as best we can. For the customer name, it's tough to edit human names, you know, what's a valid name, but we can ensure that the user hasn't left the field blank. And then finally, we're going to protect all these other cells so that the user can't type into them. So over here in the Invoice Worksheet, I'm going to walk you through how to actually change or set this thing up, and you should work along with me here. So for the date field, we're going to validate that it's a valid date. In other words, we're not going to allow somebody to type ABCD into the field. And we're also going to check, so that's the data type, that in fact what they type is a valid date. The other thing we're going to check for is that the range, and that is we don't want them entering a date in the future. Invoices are for work that's already been done, so you can't invoice for a date in the future. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put the cursor in the date field and then come up to the data tab and select over here data validation. And when I do that, it'll pop up the validation field, and it's sitting on the field that I'm in right now. So first thing in the settings tab, I have to decide what kind of data I'm going to allow in here, and I want to say date. Now that ensures that they'll type a date, and it isn't just that it's, you know, year, month, date, or day, month, year, or something like that. It'll also validate that it's a correct date. For example, you can't say May the 42nd. It will make sure that since May has 31 days that you don't enter 32 or 33 in the field. Now that specifies that ensures that they're going to type a date. The other thing we need to check for is range, and in this case we want it to be today or in the past, not in the future. So I'm going to say less than or equal to, and then I'll use the today function to specify that it has to be less than or equal to today. So let's see what happens when we had that validation on the field. Nothing changes in its appearance, and in fact the field has the today function in it already. But if I come in and type a date that's in the past, like 3/15/2017, and tab away, it's fine. Okay, but let's try typing in a date, a value that's not valid, ABCD. If I try that, then I get this pop-up. This value doesn't match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. Now, that's a lousy error message because it only tells you that something went wrong, but not how to fix it. We'll get to that later. Now I can click on retry, or I can click on cancel. If I click on cancel, it tosses what I had typed already. Suppose I try and type a date that's in the future, like 4/1/2017. It's not going to allow that either. And finally, it won't allow an invalid date like February 31st, 2017. That's in the past. It's a date, but it's not a valid date, so it won't allow that. So it's going to require me to put in a valid value for the date. Now, let's look at improving the error message. It's important in an error message to not tell somebody that what they typed is bad. You have to tell them what would be a good value. So the way you fix that is you come into data validation here again, and this time you pick the error alert over here. The style is a stop. That's the red X. That's an indication that something's wrong. And here I'm going to type an error message that says date must not be in the future. So that means, today or in the past. So if I just add that little error message, now I've told the user that something's wrong, and I've also told them how to fix it, or what would be a good value. So now if I come in and type 3/18/2017, I'll get this message, date must not be in the future. So I can click on retry, come in and correct it to the 17th, which happens to be today's date, and I press enter and it accepts it. So now we validated the value and told the user how to correct it, not just that they made a mistake, but how to correct it. Now, for the customer name and numbers like the labor hour rates or parts amount, I'm going to leave that for you to read how to do that in the PDF. What I'm going to show you next is how to do a list. So here we have an item repaired, and we really don't want people just typing in stuff here, because then we can get a lot of different spellings on the same thing. Somebody could type external DISC drive, and we really don't want that. So what we've done over here in the lookups worksheet is we made a list of item types, and that range of lists, range of different types of items that we could be repairing, we've given that the name item types. So let's come over here and require them to choose from a list. So I'm going to say data validation, and this time in the settings area I'm going to select a list and point to it here, which is item types is what I named it. And while I'm in here, I'm going to put in an error that simply says please choose an item from the list. Okay, now I get my drop down with the various values that are in that list over there. If the user decides to type laptop in here, they can do that. That's fine. But if you misspell it, laptop or something like that, then you'll get this message, please choose an item from the list. I drop the list down, and you have to back out of here because it doesn't allow that there. I just deleted it by pressing the backspace key. Then I can select laptop. So now we've required that the user choose from our list, and we won't have misspellings of the word laptop or disk drive or something like that, which causes a lot of problems in businesses, because if you allow users to type in names like this, then you're going to wind up with a lot of variations and misspellings and so on. It makes it very hard to report. How many laptops did we do last month? Well, if people have a lot of different spellings of it, the report gets to be very difficult. So that's how you do basic validation. I'm going to give you one more video that shows how to protect the other cells in this worksheet so that the user can't type in them or even select them for that matter.